Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. Jeff, we're watching the clash of two AEW legends today, Chris Jericho and Daniel Bryan. I think we'll have a lot to talk about, but first, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. We've got we're on the road. Well, I mean, officially after this week, we got, of course, the Elimination Chamber this week, but then after that, we are solid on the road heading toward WrestleMania. Like, it's going to be busy. We got a lot happening, but I'm feeling good. Like, Rumble behind us, like all kinds of good things happening though.
And I know that we still have the road to WrestleMania, and I know that it's still like a big thing on the annual WWE calendar, but it's just crazy how it's not. I mean, this stuff doesn't let up because, like, you've got all these big shows all over the world now. Plus, you got to put together Saturday night's main events. Plus, you got to make sure Raw is stacked for Netflix. I mean, there is no road to anything. I mean, you do blow off some storylines and some things and some big moments at WrestleMania, and it is the crowning event for the company, but it's so much more of an annual calendar. And an analogy I'd use is, like, you think of the NFL, right? And it's like the Super Bowl. Obviously now, you go 16, 17, we'll eventually get to 18 games, right? So it's like they own such a big part of the calendar. Then, they've made the draft into this like massive thing, right? Where like 100,000 people come and they get these monster ratings. And then they have free agency. Yep. And then it's training camp. And they've done a great job, even for a sport that has a defined season, right? They've made it where they don't really lose the conversation throughout the year. And of course, WWE doesn't have an off season, but same thing where they've just made it into, it just doesn't stop. And I think they might've been part of that, like that Triple H video that aired at the beginning of Netflix. But I think they said something like that, where it was like, the story never ends. And it's just like the year never ends either. And I say that in a really good way, but it's wild what they've done. Where, I mean, when do you tune out of this stuff? Like, and I know some casual, but it's like, for me, it's just like there's not a month of the year this year where I'm like, okay, I won't follow, I won't watch, I won't pay attention. You have to. It's crazy.
It's weird too, because like Rumble was here in my kind of current city of Indianapolis, and so like it's hard. Like, and you and I have always tried over the years to like kind of lock down before there is a big event. Spoilers, kind of avoid that type of stuff. But then like it's hard. You pretty much have to. You can't go on any of your social media on any platform during that time. But then on the flip side, like. I sent you they renamed 25 streets around town. So even if I'm driving around downtown, all of a sudden I see like Cody Road and like all these other things like what that they were doing. And like even like the Children's Museum got in on it, and you got like the belt. And so it is kind of cool. Like they have these big giant dinosaurs that are at the Children's Museum, and they hung a belt on it. And so it's kind of like, okay, like even if you're just, a casual fan, like seeing this stuff, kind of seeing what they're doing, you're like, holy shit. Like, and it brings you back in. So like you said, it's really hard to not like, and we can talk about during the match, like the accessibility now with Netflix. Like I'm watching the weekly show more because I didn't have cable. And so I had to watch on a repeat or do whatever I needed to do to get it. Now it's like, all right, I'm like folding laundry. I'm going to throw on Raw. Like, oh, I don't care, whatever's happening in that, 9 o'clock hour. So yeah, it's really, like you said, it's hard to, we're fans, but it's hard to turn off either way.
Yep. Love it. You picked this match. Why did you pick it? I'm certainly intrigued.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of go back here, even though it's Bryan and Jericho. We'll see. There's a few other players in on this one too. This is the first NXT ever, and so it had a totally different format. It had a completely they were filming it weird. It was not anything kind of like what we're used to seeing now, and so I really wanted to kind of go back and kind of see, like, as much as we've been talking about NXT and that evolution of NXT at this point, like it started very differently. And I know we talk a lot about, wrestlers having to evolve, but like this program itself has come a long way too. And so AEW wrestlers aside, it's supposed to be it's still two big names at the time, a little bit more in their prime than they are now. Not this giving tree or learning tree bullshit, whatever Jericho's doing and being hated for. So just a lot of, kind of check this out. I'm kind of, this kind of starts our build to WrestleMania as well too. I've got some big stuff on the docket here, so let's start a little bit smaller before we get into the big stuff here. Yep.
Awesome. Let's do it. Let's get into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So I guess we'll see when the match starts. We're at the Bradley Center, which is where the Milwaukee Bucks used to play, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And we're in an arena, obviously shooting it before a Raw or a SmackDown, whatever it might have been. So to your point, different look. And this was kind of the first iteration of NXT, February 23rd, 2010. So 15 years ago, which is wild. We start off with a dark match of Jimmy Wang Yang, who apparently is a hell of a nice guy. I think we saw him at the one thing we were at. Yeah, apparently he's just a really nice guy. So him and Slam Master Jay defeated Tyler Rex and Vance Archer. Dumb question. Is Vance Archer Lance Archer?
I will look it up for you right now.
Okay. Christian and Heath Slater. Okay. Christian and Heath Slater are going to defeat Carlito and Michael Tarver in 4 minutes. David Otunga, who is accompanied by R-Truth, and I guess this is when we're doing like the main roster mentors, is going to defeat Darren Young, who is accompanied by CM Punk, Luke Gallows, and Serena. Straight Edge Society, I believe, was their name. And then Chris Jericho and Daniel Bryan. Chris Jericho is going to be accompanied by Wade Barrett, who I guess Jericho was his mentor, and then Daniel Bryan's going to be accompanied by The Miz, and The Miz was his mentor. So, that's our show. A lot going on there. I know there was some build to this, and there were some moving pieces. So, how do we get to this being like a match that supposedly mattered?
Yeah, so like you said, this was at the time NXT was doing this. It was different, and so it worked, but it was unusual now for like this mentor-mentee kind of weight, or kind of approach. So, like you said, you had this episode of NXT, you had a little bit of story building throughout it too, but you had the United States and Unified Tag Champ, The Miz, and his rookie, Daniel Bryan. And so what you had is, before he sending Bryan to the ring, kind of Miz playing up the heel angle of his character at the time, said that, people, and Daniel Bryan would have been known, or Bryan Danielson, whatever you want to call him. I'm going to say Daniel Bryan for the sake of keeping it simple here. That, he was known for kind of what he had done before this, and Miz calling him like an internet darling and kind of taking that approach from it. And so, but then you also had Bryan making fun of the Miz, and as we all know, his reality TV, like real world, kind of doing all of that. And so while he was doing that, like Bryan was kind of going from the approach of, hey, I've been working for the last 10 years trying to do this. And so, and what it did is it kind of set the groundwork for the storyline here of like they were calling them the pros and the rookies, that, there was going to be some tension between them. There would be some storyline and kind of how they were doing that. And so, like I said, this was the kind of, at the time the show was on Sci-Fi, it was Tuesday nights. And what you were getting was, this was, who was the world heavyweight champion, Chris Jericho, taking on Daniel Bryan, like we said. So yes, Wade Barrett was Jericho's rookie, and so you'll see that he was in this corner with him as well too. And what they kind of did was, we'll see throughout the match kind of how this played out, but like you said, there wasn't a ton of kind of why are these two guys. It's just, you've got the Miz, you've got Jericho, you figured, I guess we can put together like now, like knowing what we know, like behind the scenes, probably wanted to work with Bryan probably wanted to work with him because of who he was. And so we get this first match between these guys to really, you figure you need something big to kick off NXT. You got to learn some of these people. So having the Miz and Jericho in corners, and then Barrett and Bryan, if you kind of knew them even a little bit, you started to see their faces a little bit more. So that's how we get to this. We're like, just, introducing it. That's really what it boils down to, but unusual, but good.
I'm pumped to cover this one, man. It should be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
absolutely.
we got a YouTube clip. WWE NXT Season 1, Episode 1, Chris Jericho versus Daniel Bryan. That's the title of the video. You'll post it as well. Yeah, man.
Yep.
We're going to hit play on this one and get into it. You ready?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
Nonetheless, little confrontation.
All right, here we are.
The Miz and Daniel Bryan
you hear it?
has led to this main
Great
event
entrance.
tonight. Bryan,
Yep.
welcome to your opponent, the World Heavyweight Champion.
Both the guys are really
And of course, Wade.
looking extremely young.
Do you know the story on Barrett? So what's the story on Barrett? Is he physically not able to wrestle, or is he choosing not to?
I am not sure. I'll kind of do a quick
look
search
it up.
here
I'm
while
just
we're
curious. It'd be interesting. Like, I just don't know. I don't know what his deal is. It's funny because I mean, with all due respect, kind of like a mid-carder guy, but I do feel like, with a little bit of age and wisdom, and being that he's been on TV for a number of years now in this capacity, I feel like there's a way where you could relaunch him and he could be a main event player. I don't know how he'd be on promos. I don't know how he'd be in the ring, but like, I feel like if he is healthy, he'd have a tremendous upside.
Boy, some of these graphics here. Pro Matt Hardy, rookie Justin Gabriel. Like, that's weird. Yeah. I don't see anything that says he was hurt. It may just be he is in that commentator role.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I thought he had a neck issue, but again, that was so long ago that it'll be interesting. So Jericho and Barrett are cutting a promo. We have kind of this rookie thing. I get what they were trying to do. I will tell you, just from looking at this, like, it feels like the rookie is lesser than. Like, it's like, okay, here you're the kid, you're the child, you're the student. And so I think sometimes it can be tough because it's like, okay, I see them in that role, and then now I'm supposed to believe that, they're a grown up, right? I don't know. So I get that approach, but I think sometimes it's tough. And I'd imagine, it's tough. A lot of these guys, I mean, not that they were all going to become megastars, but I mean, I think it took Bryan Danielson, I think it took him a while to get out of being the Miz's pupil, right? I mean, it took years and years, and hell, I don't know if Vince ever saw him in any other capacity, but at some point he had no choice because of the popularity.
Yeah, so a little bit of a reminder how this played out. So it was actually like elimination style, if you remember. And so what they would do is, like, it was to declare a winner, I guess, of NXT is the best way to look at it. And so
yeah, I mean, like, look at the way. Sorry, but like, look at the way the Miz is being like,
yep.
Like, it's the Miz's music, but then Bryan's coming out. He looks 12 years old. He's kind of like dancing around. So it's like, it's tough to like. I mean, he looks like a kid, right? And like Miz looks like the adult. I just don't like the presentation of this. I'm just saying, if you were going to do it again today, I don't think this is the right approach I mean, obviously, and the way NXT is now, let them main event in a smaller venue versus being brought up as like kids.
So to give you a little, here's the pairings that I think you might find a little interesting here. Just a few. So you had Daniel Bryan with The Miz, rookie. And so I'll do the rookie first. So Michael Tarver with Carlito, and Michael Tarver not doing much now. And then you had Skip Sheffield, who was supposed to be with MVP and then ended up with William Regal. Skip Sheffield, also known as Ryback. Darren Young with CM Punk, Heath Slater with Christian, Justin Gabriel with Matt Hardy, David Otunga with R-Truth, and Wade Barrett with Chris Jericho. And so it kind of, it's interesting to see some of those names have exceeded their pro is the best way to look at it. So you got Bryan extending his hand now, Jericho playing the heel though, as the chant kind of slapping his hand away. Bryan looks young too. I mean, they both do, but yeah.
You have any? I mean, I'm gonna ask a question, then I'm gonna state the obvious, or at least from my perspective. So, do you have a way of ending their careers? And I'm just gonna give you the boring, obvious answer, which is I feel like both of these guys should wrestle their final match on a WrestleMania, right? I just, in my heart of hearts, it's like, Daniel Bryan Danielson should have a final match at a WrestleMania against the right opponent and potentially the night before go into the Hall of Fame. And if you wanted to do those different years, match 1 year, Hall of Fame the next year, that's cool too. And it's same with Jericho. And I feel like both are in that legendary category. I'd love to see both their send-offs there. Like AEW did a great job with Sting. And I don't know if they could have done much better of a job of honoring him. I mean, there's little things here and there, but so many of the touches and so many of the things they did, and the arena was packed and the match was fun and his kids were involved. I mean, it was great. But again, the pageantry of WrestleMania, the audience, the Hall of Fame, I'd love that for both of these guys. I mean, Agree, disagree? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because, like, okay, maybe, I don't know if their retirement necessarily needs to be a mania moment. I think that it is. I think you pose a different question almost here of like, who would you rather retire with, at AEW or WWE? They've both, obviously Jericho's been there since the start at this point of AEW. He's been at all kinds of different promotions. I'm sure he would probably be welcomed back with open arms. I'm sure Daniel would be too, or Bryanson or Danielson. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like, and part of me wants to say, hey, do they, at what point does it become vanity to say, all right, here's who I want to wrestle. Like, I want to go out on my back to these guys. And so at what point though, you got to weigh, all right, is it worth it to bring Jericho in to have a 6-month year run? Like, does it slow down building other people? Like, do I want to see Jericho against Braun Breaker and have him beat him? No, I really don't. And also it slows down Braun. It doesn't really give you anything. So maybe Jericho, like, do you do some kind of Legends angle with him? But like Orton did that, and being the killer on that one. And that's not, so is Jericho one? I don't know, like, it's hard. And so, booking that kind of final, what are they going to be, and to have a good retirement match. And then also, like, as we've seen, okay, like, fine. Like, Jericho's out there. I know he's not well liked because they, at least the chatter I see online is, he's not well liked because he's ruining storylines, and it's just, he doesn't belong in there. Like, okay, but on the flip side, like, I just don't want to see that happen in WWE. So I don't even know, if he goes out and has a bad retirement match.
I don't know if we caught it on camera, but we were right here. Chris Jericho caught.
Jeez.
Yeah. Hard hitting right now. Yeah.
Yeah, they're having a really
but if he has a bad
match.
Yeah, he has a bad match, and then we got to wonder, oh, is he coming back? Like, and so I don't want to have to live in that world and him go out poorly. So yeah. Ooh, Bryan kind of hitting his back on the table there, or, diving through the ropes, but then hitting his back against the table too. That was a JD McDonough move almost there too with the head snap. Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, I think the JD one was nastier, but this was still pretty nasty too. I mean, Bryan's flying around the ring, just fun to watch. Obviously, Jericho younger.
Yep. Jericho tried to save him a little bit there too, and still just didn't go well. So fast paced. They keep showing Bryan's side now from where he hit the table, and it's all bruised already. Yep. Oh, and it looks like he's going to lock in. The walls of Jericho are trying to get Bryan turned over. Yep, but nope. Bryan reverses it. Very nice.
Yeah, I think one of the big lessons learned is, the things that have done. I mean, NXT took off when they weren't trying to be WWE light. ECW failed because it was trying to be WWE light. One of Vince's problems was he had and I think Vince, Kevin Dunn, probably the two of them fed off each other. They had a very rigid viewpoint of what wrestling was. And so the problem is everything looked the same. Every show looked the same. Everything was filmed the same. Like, whereas, NXT took off when it didn't try to be, okay, so we got to.
Yeah, Bryan taps out. He had no choice there, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Jericho. Victorious.
Got the walls locked in. There you go.
Heavyweight champion.
So my feeling on this is this stuff that they were trying to do, this pro versus kid thing, Miz beating up Daniel Bryan. I don't know who this helps. Jericho's your world champion. Of course, he's going to win the match, and he should win the match, and he looks strong. Daniel Bryan loses a 6-minute, 8-minute match, whatever it is. Now he's getting the shit beat out of him by the Miz. Okay. So I don't know how this helps him. And again, I know that eventually he became world champion, but in this moment, I just don't know what point we're serving. I mean, I guess we're mixing, rookies with pros, okay, giving them the quote unquote rub. But if the pro is going to win, if the pro is going to look strong, this just does nothing. I think having that unique world where these guys exist and can work on their characters alone, FCW in 2007 to 2012, NXT, 2012 beyond, as it started to transition into its own thing. That to me was the right way to do this. So anyways, it's good to see this, but I think it's a reminder that this did not work. It didn't really serve anyone. And he immediately taps out to the walls of Jericho. So, I mean, it's not, not a fan of this at all, just in terms of what they did. So, all right, let's get to
keep him strong. Yeah.
The aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
All right, so I gave my thought on this. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I said, I think they were too much of them trying to find what they wanted to be. Like, on paper, they probably had this great idea for NXT and how it was going to play out. But then, you don't know how it's going to play out actually on TV. Like, that's very different between writing the script for what they want and then you get out in the ring and kind of what happens at that point. And so really interesting just to kind of see how, what it has turned into, and it had to evolve. Like, it would have just been another kind of, random TV show with wrestler eliminations and, who are we getting to see? Is it someone that we're ever going to see on the main roster? Like, it kind of had to become its own beast or else it would have failed. And it just wouldn't have been what it is now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thoughts? You?
Yeah. This just didn't work. I mean, what they're doing now is just so much better. I mean, building out their own development, putting it in different venues, creating a unique brand for it was just such a better approach. And so I'm glad they got this thing right.
Yeah. Yeah, just in time. So both these guys, though, kind of what happened. And we kind of know, Daniel Bryan, he ended up being eliminated first, actually, on this season of NXT, but obviously went on to be okay. Jericho as well, too. Like both, like they never really, eventually down the road, obviously NXT or AEW, but not a whole lot that kind of happened after this one. So PWI, we do have the rankings for 2010. Jericho was 5. Daniel Bryan was 44. So pretty high, actually, you figure, to be a quote unquote rookie. No reviews on this really, or kind of write-ups that I could find. Not a whole lot out there. So I think what score are you thinking?
I have this at a 4, and I actually thought the match was good. I liked how quick it was, fast-paced, back and forth. Both guys kind of flying around. So I liked the actual match. But I didn't like, I don't understand what the point of it was. It didn't help either guy. It doesn't help your world champion. It doesn't help the young guy. So I didn't like that point of it. How about you?
Yeah, I put it at a 3. I feel like it just, like you said, the match itself was okay. But I think too much of them trying to find their footing, too much of them not knowing what they're trying to do, and it just kind of spoils it. And so not what it could have been. Like, who knows, under different circumstances, we've seen it a little bit, but yeah, I think just too much of them trying to figure out who they are and what they are. So good though, not a bad one though. Of course, enjoy that, but yeah. So
another one in the books. So next week we're going back to 1997.
Going to Germany. Yes, we're going way back here. Monday Night Raw taking place in Germany. And so a lot on the card here, but 2 big names. Who doesn't love the British Bulldog and Owen Hart? We're going to get into it. Yep.
Good. All right. Well, this was fun, and we'll see you next week on an all-new episode of The Payoff.